Hi boys and girls, it's time for Apple Blossom the Possum. We are already on chapter 29, page 200. All right, remember this is where the little possums, Amlet and Antonio, met up with Big Poss, their dad. Big Poss, or Big Boss, which Antonio silently decides would be a better name, emerges onto the cement path behind a row of monster houses. He stops under a streetlight, which Antonio and Amlet both think is bold and even dangerous, and makes a proclamation. This will be my first lesson as your big boss. Think of it as a master class in theater. Amlet can't stop himself. Mama said to avoid lights. His father shoots him a look. Let's not drag her into everything. Big Poss then fluffs the fur between his ears and strikes a pose. When he next speaks, he uses a deep voice with lots of projection. Do you know why alleys are the greatest places in the world? Antonio and Amlet don't say anything because they aren't sure what an alley is. But Big Poss answers his own questions. Alleys have garbage cans. Now stand back. This is a life lesson. Watch the maestro perform. Big Boss takes off in what looks like a run, but has a lot of wobble and not a lot of speed. The oversized marsupial crosses the alley into the strange manner of movement. Grunting as he advances, he then lowers his skull and slams headfirst into an enormous trash receptacle. A loud thud echoes down the quiet alley. Both Antonio and Amlet gasp in shock as the garbage container rocks and then teeters and finally falls over. But it isn't just a garbage container that goes down hard. So does Big Poss. The oversized possum is knocked right off his feet from the self-imposed head-on collision. Now he's on his back with his arms stretched out. Antonio and Amlet take off across the alley. Are you okay? Antonio asks. Amlet runs in a circle around the body as Big Poss' low, sad voice moans, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. Antonio and Amlet lean close. Antonio grabs his father's front paw and holds it tight. Anything, Big Poss. Amlet follows his example and clutches his father's back foot. Big Poss strains to speak, causing his two sons to lean even closer. What I need you to do is important. Antonio's eyes flood with tears. Yes, Papa. Big Poss' voice growls. It's Big Poss, not Papa. Even to you two. Big Poss exhales slowly and then inhales a long, deep breath. In a very tense moment as he makes his request, while I'm on my back like this, his voice trails out to nothing. The two young possums wait and wait. It feels as if their hearts are breaking. Finally, Big Poss finds the strength to continue. While I'm on my back like this, rub my belly. Big Poss squeals as he shoots up to a sitting position. Antonio and Amlet scream. Big Poss then roars with laughter as he chokes on his own words. What a performance! Am I wrong? Who's your daddy now? Who's an actor? Who's a major star? Antonio and Amlet are speechless. Big Poss shoots them a harsh look. Applause is the accepted form of acknowledgement. Applause is the accepted form of acknowledgement. Antonio and Amlet bring their heads together and clap. It's not very enthusiastic. Big Poss rolls over onto all fours and heads to the toppled container. The show's over. Don't just stand there with your tails flapping in the wind. Antonio and Amlet watch as Big Poss grabs a plastic bag that's wedged inside a toppled receptacle. He looks over his shoulder and shouts, Give me some help over here. Antonio and Amlet scramble to his side and the three possums pull out a lumpy black bag. It smells like a real find. Big Poss' eyes flash with excitement as he uses his teeth to rip open the thick plastic. Once he has a hole in the sack, he bellows, "The world's my oyster!" In seconds, he's tossing things into piles and yelling out an inventory. Tea bagged, ripped paper sack with a splash of corn oil, pizza box with scraps of sausage, coffee grounds in a dry filter, stale cereal, bread crust, peanut shells, wine cork, moldy cheese rind, milk carton, wax paper wrapping from a butter cube, some jelly on the bottom of a jar, eggshells, toothpick, hard noodles in a tangy red sauce, greasy lamb bone, carrot tops, dry peas, muffin cup with blueberry and yellow cake stuck to the sides, eggplant top, banana skin. He then turns to his sons and he shouts, "It's a feast." Antonio and Hamlet look at the contents of the plastic bag, which are now scattered everywhere. Mama taught them to be very careful in their search for food. They were told to always leave an area clean and tidy. The two possums watch as their father's nose plunges into the glass jar. When he pulls it out, there's a large glob of marmalade on the end. It's bright orange with a curling rind of citrus that Big Poss's tongue instantly sweeps into his mouth. His lips stretch back into a toothy smile. "Don't be shy, little buttlelugs." Antonio and Hamlet make their way to the scattered heaps, and as Big Poss devours the garbage, they search for treasures to call their own. Chapter 30, page 208. Hours later, Antonio and Hamlet still haven't been able to get Big Poss's attention away from the garbage cans. Big Poss is chewing an empty yogurt container and spitting out plastic pieces when Antonio begs, "We have to stop eating and do something to help Apple Blossom." Big Poss stops spewing white chunks and looks up. Maybe he's finally full because he says, "Your sister? She's trapped in a monster house, remember?" Big Poss's eyes narrow and he whispers, "I've taken this time to formulate a plan." Antonio and Hamlet exhale with relief, even though the plan has not been revealed. "You have," says Hamlet. "That's great. Tell us." Big Poss rises up on his back legs and gives his body a shake. Scraps from his meal fly in all directions. He then runs his finger through the fur on top of his head and works at fashioning his wild hair into his signature style. Antonio and Hamlet wait patiently. Their father pulls on his tail to straighten it. He grabs a prickly weed from a crack in the dark asphalt and uses it to scrub his teeth. He tosses the plant, smacks his lip, and bellows, "Are you ready to tumble?" Big Poss then springs forward, and his front paws hit the ground as he kicks his back feet high into the air. His tail arches into a somewhat graceful manner, and he executes a fairly decent cartwheel. Hamlet just stares, but Antonio says, "So the plan is to do cartwheels?" Big Poss raises his arms high in the air. "Staging is very important. I thought you would have studied that in acting class." Hamlet answers with a touch of sarcasm, "Maybe we didn't have enough instruction." Big Poss clears his throat and steps forward into the spot created by the streetlight. It's dramatic, but it looks dangerous. His voice is filled with the weight and importance as he delivers his message. "We must go and find your mother." Antonio can't hide his anger. "Your big plan is to find Mama Possum? If that was your big plan, why didn't you just tell us that hours ago? And how do you intend to find her?" says Hamlet. "We haven't seen her in days." Big Poss doesn't seem the least bit bothered by the fact that Antonio and Hamlet are both yelling. He barely shrugs. "Oh, trust me, ankle biters. This won't be hard. Your mother loves to hop and bop. She most especially loves to dance in the moonlight." Antonio doesn't hide his disdain. "Mama doesn't hop or bop." And Hamlet adds, "And Mama absolutely doesn't dance in the moonlight." Big Poss groans. The young never really know their parents. That's the tragedy of modern life. Hamlet answers, "Of course we don't know you. We only met you earlier tonight." Big Poss grabs his own tail and cracks it like a whip. "Believe me when I say your mama loves rock and roll." Hamlet's voice is shaky. Hey, sure, whatever you say. You're the Big Poss." Big Poss spins around and does a quick two-step. "For now, we exit stage left." The next thing the two young possums know, Big Poss has dropped to the ground and scurried to the telephone pole, where he starts to climb with great vigor. Antonio and Amulet have no choice but to follow. With a lot more balance and skill than seems possible, their flabby father scrambles out onto the wires that connect the poles. Amulet and Antonio struggle to keep up. Big Poss's weight makes the telephone lines bounce, and that's a plus. He's singing, making for a unique high wire act. The two brothers are so intent on not losing sight of the large marsupial that they forget they have never been this far from their own neighborhood. Almost an hour passes before Big Poss finally stops atop a pole on a platform that looks out on a wide, glowing river of light. This is the largest cement path that Antonio and Amulet have ever seen. One side is red and one side glows bright white. Amulet whispers to Antonio, "The vicious beasts are all together." Big Poss wraps his tail around the wire and bellows over the rumble of the metal monsters. "Take a peek at that pilgrims." Antonio manages. "You took us all the way to see a monster migration?" Amulet whispers, "What's a migration?" Antonio doesn't answer. His eyes now fix on the wires ahead, which runs towards enormous towers. These giant structures have cables strung high above the wide cement path. Big Poss stares out into a distance. "Your mama is on the other side." Antonio steps back in defeat. "Big Poss, I can't go out there. I have problems with heights." "There, I said it. I'm a big baby. Maybe they should be my new name." At his side, Amulet whispers, "Same with me. I can't do it." Big Poss looks at his two sons. "Can't do what?" Amulet speaks for both of them. "We can't cross over cars and trucks with a high wire." Big Poss chortles. "We're not crossing from above. I just came to show you the view." His spotted tongue rolls back into his mouth, and Big Poss turns and starts down the pole to the ground. Antonio and Amulet are both confused. If he isn't going to cross in the air, does he plan on crossing on the ground? Antonio calls out, "What are you doing? We can't face that many cars and truck." But Big Poss doesn't answer. Once down from the pole, Big Poss heads for a rock pile in an area thick with weeds. Scraps of paper and many plastic bags, mostly torn, are caught in snarls around the scrappy green shoots. Big Poss knows his way around, and he moves quickly, not in a straight line, but in a zigzag manner, until he comes to a large storm drain that is unseen behind the rocks. "Follow me, sing a line, and don't chase the toads or talk to the rats. We don't have time to listen to their nonsense." There is a metal grate in front of the storm drain. It isn't difficult for Antonio or Amulet to get through, but Big Poss has to draw in his breath and squeeze his body into a gap that does not look large enough to accommodate his girth. He is thrilled when he gets to the other side, shouting, "When you're an actor, your body is your instrument." A slow-moving stream runs down the center of the drain. Big Poss leads away. Antonio and Amulet feel their feet slide in the ooze. It isn't long before the dark world comes alive. The first thing they recognize is a croak of toads. Amulet finds amphibians very tasty, but the three possums are full of garbage, and besides, according to Big Poss's instructions, there's no stopping now. Antonio and Amulet hear the rats before they see them. There's a rustling noise, and then there's a low hiss of rodent voices. "Hey there, you beasts new to the neighborhood. Can we talk? You want to buy a snapping turtle?" Big Poss keeps moving, but grunts in the direction of the unseen voices. "We're not buying anything you're selling." Several steps later, Antonio feels something hit his back. It's a pebble. He turns and sees a dozen of rodent eyes. When he gasps, Big Poss rears up onto his back legs and growls, "Listen, you rats, I didn't come here looking for trouble, but I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you good." Big Poss then charges straight into the darkness, his mouth open to expose his 42 sharp but chipped and stained teeth, but he doesn't have to use them. The dozens of rats take off in the other direction, leaving the three possums to continue their way. Antonio and Amulet don't say anything, but they are both impressed by the performance. All right, boys and girls, that's where we stop at today. We will start again tomorrow. Have a great day.